It's now time to bring you the Master Gardener Show, brought to you by Anderley Lumber and Williamson County Grain.
Welcome to the Master Gardener Hour. Today's topic is bees. Bees and humans have been through a lot together. People began keeping bees as early as 20,000 BC. Beekeeping probably predates the dawn of agriculture, which occurred about 12,000 years ago, and likely made farming possible. Beekeeping is the second oldest profession. My guest today is beekeeper Darren Orsag. Did I say that
yes,
correct?
You did.
Okay. Of Lee County Honey. And Megan.
Howdy.
So tell me about yourself. How did you become a beekeeper?
Yeah. So
How'd you grow up?
Yeah. So I have a family history with beekeeping. My grandpa was a beekeeper, Edgar Fain, in Llano, and part of the Fain's Honey beekeeping family. If you ever go to HEB, you'll see Fain's Honey on the shelf, so they're pretty well known and recognized. And Megan's family, her grandpa was also a beekeeper as well in the Victoria area. So
okay.
We kind of have a history with it. My experience with beekeeping as it relates to my grandpa is limited, and I wish I had more. I wish I had been more into it when he was still around to learn from. But we're hopeful that the girls will know about it. And
do they have bee suits?
They do. They all have bee suits that they wear, and they'll go out and check hives with me at a distance. I don't let them get too close, but I might bring some frames over to them and show them the comb or the eggs and talk about it. But we don't get too close. They haven't been stung yet.
But were your parents beekeepers as well?
So my
just your grandpa?
Yeah. So it was on my grandpa on my mom's side. So my mom was not a beekeeper, but my uncle is, and he actually helps manage some of the bees for Fain's Honey. Yeah. So. His name is Steve Fain, and so we communicate a lot. He's one of the people that I go to with questions, and it's always good to have people that you can...
And where's the Fain company?
In Llano, Texas.
In Llano, Texas. Mm-hmm. Okay.
We're actually going to get, from a family side of things, her dad found her grandpa's old honey extractor, and we're going to go get that in a couple of weeks. So just to have, it's mm-hmm. kind of neat. It's a neat family tradition, you know. Mm-hmm. We're really heavily influenced by the history and the sentimental value of beekeeping and what it's meant to our families combined. And so
well, tell me about your mission, because I love the be you, be kind, and love Jesus.
Megan, step on in.
We feel like beekeeping is it's more than beekeeping to us, and like Darren said, it's a family tradition, and we feel like our family has a solid foundation as Jesus followers, and so these are like some of our family values that mean quite a bit to us. And so being yourself, being who God created you to be, and whatever passions you have, and whatever interests you have, to follow your dreams. And so that's when I've been so proud of Darren of, this is an idea, like he's like, I want to carry on a family tradition, and he did it. So he's being himself. And then being kind. So we're big on being kind in our family. And being kind doesn't mean telling you what you want to hear. It's being truthful and being honest. And so we feel like that's a major Christian value we want our family to have. And then loving Jesus. And so we talk about what our goals are for our girls and our family. And we just say no matter what they want to do, as long as they love Jesus, and we feel like we've done our job as a family. And so we feel like with our beekeeping that yes, we want to share with the world, with our community, what beekeeping is and how important it is, and to the environment, but also these strong family values that we have, and that when they're buying from us, they're buying from my family, and they know who we are and what we stand for.
And that's why you're right here in Lexington.
Yes, we're really proud of that. And where we're at.
And the name LeeCo Honey.
Lee County Honey.
Yep.
That's our goal is to remain exclusive to Lee County and keep our bees in Lee County. We may have to grow beyond this property in the future, but our goal is to stay within the confines of Lee County and have local honey.
Mm-hmm. It's like the Lee County Christmas trees. If you haven't been there, you have to go there soon too.
That's true. We've been there.
They're great people.
The Schaefers. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We love them. We have the past 2 years we've had our tree from there. So
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yes,
We're
we
big
did
on
them. We did them last year, and we're going to do
Okay.
them again this year for their
Good.
grand opening.
good.
Yeah, they're good people.
Yeah,
They
they
are.
are.
So, what is your vision?
Oh, we want to share knowledge of beekeeping, and we want others to be involved in beekeeping, whether that's supporting us through every t-shirt that they have gotten from us. It's helped to bring bees to Lee County. So when they have that on, they can be proud that they're bringing pollinators and helping with the bee population. And we know that a third of the world's food is populated by bees, or pollinated by bees. And so it's really important for us to let our community feel like they're part of that and part of that mission. And so we want to continue to grow our business to include the community to do that. So we'd love to eventually have events out here to do some teaching of how to be a beekeeper and how to harvest honey, and what plants can you plant to help with bees coming into your own property, and just having people in the community being able to feel like they can come to us to ask questions about bees and bee removals and bee relocations, and for having them to come to Darren, I think is pretty incredible, and that they know that.
So you're a bee rescuer.
Yes.
I do partake in that. Yes. Yeah. So it's something that's fun to do for me. It's not something that we generally make a lot, if any, money on, but and that sometimes is a challenge to get out and do all those things with our time constraints. But we do enjoy it. I mean, the alternative is that somebody decides to throw some pesticides out and get rid of them, and we sure do enjoy having them here. As we talked about a minute ago when we drove around, there's quite a few hives out there that we recovered from other locations, and they're hopefully going to contribute to local honey here. And they were contributing in the tree where they're at. We have several feral hives around the property that I could point out to you that we don't mess with because we don't bother them, because they're doing what we want them to do and pollinating too. And hopefully at some point we can catch some swarms that come off of those hives and add to our existing bees.
Have you ever caught any swarms right on your property?
We have not on our property yet. Hopefully with increasing hives, I know that we've had some swarms come out of our existing hives. We haven't caught them. We have a couple of hive swarm traps set out. That's a goal of ours, to try to recover when we have splits that are done by the bees themselves.
How
through
would that
swarming.
even happen? If they're swarming, do you just run after them?
He sends me.
No, I tell people it's like snipe hunting. You got to shake a little bag and whistle to them and make little noises, but that's not true. Don't do that. No, generally they'll go and they'll locate on a tree branch close by, and you'll see them balled up.
I've actually seen them.
Yeah.
They had a swarm that came to our property, but we just took pictures and ran around it.
And they're generally pretty mellow. They're pretty docile when they're not protecting a hive. They're just trying to locate a new home. So they have scout bees that are going out and trying to find what may be a suitable location for the hive to go to. And in the meantime, they're just all balled together, and the queen's in there, and they're waiting to be told where they're going to go.
So how would you actually catch them? You just put a net on them?
They're pretty,
or?
yeah, a lot of people will do that. They're pretty easy to catch. The swarms are the easiest way to grow your existing hives or get into beekeeping if you can find one. A lot of people will just take a 5-gallon bucket and they just take the tree branch and shake it, and they fall in there and they put a cover on them and they go transport them into their hive. If you put a cover on them and you do that method, just make sure that you don't leave them in there too long. They'll get hot and they will die. So you transport them pretty quickly. On all of our buckets that we use for collecting bees, they have cut out with wire mesh in them to help the airflow through there and make sure that we're not losing bees. So, but yeah, that's the main way to do it.
So why did you choose the hexagon logo? That you had for your
It's kind of little
Well,
reasons.
yeah. So there's 6 of us in the family, and there's 6 sides to the hexagon. And then the hexagon is the strongest shape in nature, and it's also what the bees use when they're building their comb. It's the shape that they choose, and so we felt like, again, bringing it back to the family, and that we feel like we're a really strong family unit, and there's 6 of us, and so we just felt like it was a perfect fit. And our favorite Bible verse is Proverbs 16:24, and we live on Farm Road 1624, and so we felt like it was like words
Now
like
I see
honey.
the connection.
Yeah, so we felt like
there's
there's
a bee connection.
yeah. We call them our God winks, and so just little things that I feel like we're getting pointed in the right direction with the bees, and how I think it's not only brought our family together in such a fun way, like to have his cousins and uncles, and they can talk bees. My family is dentistry, so it's not as fun. and this family, it's bees, but then, to have people, we feel like we're bringing community together. So it's not just our family as a solid unit. Like, we want Lee County Honey to be like a strong, solid community, and we can all come together to talk about local, agricultural businesses. And so it's been really fun to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a goal of ours in the future as well, is to help promote other local businesses and kind of get together with them and help promote each other. And so, and as you can tell, who the marketer of the two, when you ask questions about my ideas, I'm the beekeeper. I get out there and keep the bees, and she is incredible with the.
I'm just the beekeeper's wife.
Well, not just. She's very good with the promoting the business and defining who we are and what our goals are. So
It was still awesome.
Thank you.
And it's an amazing story.
Thank you. Yeah, we're pretty blessed, for sure.
So why are bees so fascinating to you?
How long do we have?
We have a long time.
Yeah.
I think that their community aspect is pretty amazing to me. The fact that each individual hive that you see out there is a separate community, and they when those bees go out and they travel 3 miles to find a flower that they want to get nectar out of or pollen, and when they come back, they travel that 3 miles back to that same community and that same hive. It's a very strong community, and they all have different roles. It's interesting. As an example, when we do removal, sometimes we'll go and get the eggs, the brood, and we'll take an empty frame and we'll strap the brood, the eggs, in with a rubber band, and we'll put it back in. An example of what kind of community they are and how clean and tidy and organized they are, that after a certain period of time, they'll add that comb back into the frame by layering wax on it and attaching it. And then once they have that done, they'll chew through the rubber band and they'll push it out the front of the hive like they're getting rid of it. They're keeping it clean and organized, and they're very incredible insects. I think they're pretty smart. I don't know, like I saw a thing recently with a bumblebee and how they taught it how to pull a string and to get a piece of sugar at the end of it. So they're pretty bright insects. Yeah. So.
Well, a fun fact: I watched a YouTube video on bees about geographical profiling. They studied the bees, and I guess the police use this to track down serial killers. So they put out little nectar in all over this big box, and they tracked where the bees would go. And they said that bees are kind of like serial killers, because serial killers will be just in this targeted area, and they can use those locations to track back to where the serial killer lives.
Interesting.
Isn't that? That's
wow.
a fun fact. I
There's
know.
so many of them, of bees. Like, I've learned so much, and how fascinating they are, and I love it. There's they're like a big family. And everybody's got their little job and their role, and they're either born a nurse bee, or they're, you're going to please correct me, like a soldier bee, like they protect the hive.
Guard bee, yeah.
And then, they have some that are the foragers, and so everyone has their job and everyone does their part, but it's all for the good of the hive, which I love.
I've read that some of the older bees get new jobs, which make them younger.
Makes them younger?
Yes,
That
that's what I read, that they've done this. They're born and they do this one job for so long, and then when they're really old, they'll give them a different job. And then
awesome. I've never heard that,
It
but
makes
it's awesome.
their brain go
Rethink
backwards,
that, yeah.
and be younger. I said, I wonder if that will work with humans.
Yeah, I know.
I need to be younger.
I know. It's like when you retire, you get like, the fun job you've always wanted. Or
Walmart greeter.
yeah.
So how many species of honeybees are there? And which ones do you raise?
So we have a variety, and of course with the feral bees, you don't know what you're getting out of it.
Right. They tell you, because I know when we did them that we got Italian bees,
a lot of ours are Italian.
but you can't really ask them.
And it's hard to even tell by looking at them. I mean, I think there's probably, that I can think of, 4 or 5 different varieties that are common honeybee varieties. We have Italian. I think some of the bee weaver bees, the one out of Navasota, I think a lot of them, someone told me, are a Russian variant. Almost all honeybees, if not all honeybees, are actually from Europe. So they're not actually native to the U.S. The bees like carpenter bees or bumblebees. Those are native to the States. But the other bees that produce honey were brought in by early settlers. Ours are a variety of different ones. We actually like to try different. When we purchase some hives or nukes from people, we like to purchase from different people from time to time to see what varieties or strains they have and see how they do in this area. It's just I guess kind of a way to play around and
Right. Do you have a favorite?
So far, the Italians have done really well for us. So some of the bee weaver bees we just got this year, so time will tell. But right now, really our favorites are probably the Italians. If we were to buy, it would probably be Italian.
Okay. How many stomachs does a bee have?
I hope you know the answer to that.
I do know the answer to
You
that.
tell
but 3?
Is it like a cow?
It's
I don't
2.
Two.
2. It's 2. One for the honey and then one for something else. You were supposed to know.
Yeah.
You're the expert. My
know
daughter did write down how do bees drink. She's
Yeah.
fascinated to figure out how bees drink.
When you watch them at the flower, they have it looks like a tongue that comes out, and that's how they get the nectar. Or if you spill a little honey on the ground and you watch them, they'll flick their little tongue out and pull it back in. So
It's really interesting to see, like, if you have one of those macro cameras or somebody has one and they can take a picture. Like, I've seen people just drop them on their hands and just watch them, and they'll come and lick it up. And they're not trying to be aggressive. Like, that's their job. And they're like, oh, there's easy access. And Darren, it was when we harvested honey for the first time this year, and he put some of the boxes out here for them to clean. So the combs out there, they've already been extracted, and the bees came in like swarms almost and came and just were licking up all the honey and taking all
there's 3 main. There's a drone bee, there's a worker bee, and then there's a queen bee. So the worker bees, I think we were talking about this earlier, the worker bees live about 60 days. The drones live about 90, and the queens, they say their effective lifespan is around 200 days, but people will have queens that live to 3-4 years old. So they live a lot longer, but they're cared for. Like, the queen doesn't do anything other than lay eggs. She gets fed by other bees. They clean up after her.
What's her mating flight?
Yeah, so when she's born, she goes out and she has a mating flight. That's really her only time that she leaves the hive. And when she's flying around, they've done little films on this where it looks kind of bad, but they attach a queen to a high-speed camera and they go around in a circle with the queen. And these drone bees, which are the only male bees in a hive, will go and breed the queen bee, and I think it's somewhere between 12 to 15 drone bees will breed, and when the drone bees breed, they die. And the semen that's collected from those drones during that mating flight is what she uses throughout her entirety of her life. So that's what fertilizes the eggs.
So that's her one job. She just flies around in a circle and says, "Wee!
Yeah.
All right, one time.
She flies around that one time.
Everybody else do everything for me." Man, what a life!
And then she lays 2,000 eggs a day. So after that, so yeah, that's a bit of a job, I think. Yeah, laying 2,000 eggs in a day.
Yes.
So, but yeah,
Bless her heart. They
I
should
know.
feed her.
Yes.
yeah, they do care for her. Yeah, she has attendants that just follow her around and groom her, and yeah, so she's well
It's
taken
neat
care
when
of.
when you order a queen, she'll come in this little box. I wish we had one to show you, but then she'll have some of her attendant bees with her. So it's not just her. A lot of times they'll have the attendant bees to care for her while she's in the little box. So it's kind of neat. That's another job that they have.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, there's all these things I didn't know.
She's got detailed questions though.
You have the good questions. You're
How
stumping
many
us.
hairs are on the back of bees?
Is a honeycomb and beeswax the same thing?
Yeah, well, the beeswax is what they make. See, this is what my problem is. I'm restarting. Hold on, turning it off.
That's good.
The beeswax is what is made into the honeycomb, right? So yes, they're basically the same thing. Bees make the wax, and there's a process in which they make it. It actually comes off of the bee itself, and you can see sometimes on the back legs of the bees. The back is where they'll scrape it off, and they say it's tied into like when there's a heavy nectar flow in the area, they're more likely to produce wax. And when you have a new hive, if you're feeding sugar water, it helps to produce wax. I don't know what the science behind that is, but they'll drag that little bits of wax off their legs and they'll form it into that hexagon shape, and that's what becomes the honeycomb.
So how much honeycomb do you get out of each hive?
So each hive, it depends. All hives are configured. A lot of hives are configured differently. You have an 8-frame hive. You can have a 10-frame hive. You can use shallows or deeps, or some people use top bar hives, which they don't actually have any frames at all. They're
But
just
your frames are pretty much all the same, right?
well, we have mediums or supers, and we have deep. So the deep boxes are on the bottom, and they're like a 9 5/8 inch deep, and then there's 10 frames that go in there. In a fully populated hive, we would have 20 frames in the deep boxes for the brood chamber, where they keep the eggs, and then you'd stack honey supers on top of that, and each one of those honey supers is like 6 inches deep, and it has 10 frames in each one, and you may stack 2 or 3 on top of each other. So there could be 20, 30, 40, 50 or 60 frames, a potential honeycomb. It's not honeycomb as you would, if there's a plastic frame in there or even a wax frame, it's not honeycomb as you would probably imagine getting from a wild hive, where you can pull it out and it's just 100% wax.
Okay.
Generally there's a plastic backing in the frame, and they build on one side and they build on the other. And then when you extract it, you cut the cappings off. When they fill it with nectar, they cap the tops with wax, and then it ferments in there. It turns from nectar into honey. And nectar, really the main difference is the water content. Nectar has a high water content, and nectar will spoil. Honey will not spoil. Honey never goes bad. It's the only food that doesn't go bad that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I have a fun fact about that too.
Is it about
let's
Egypt?
do.
Is it about the Egyptian tombs?
Yes.
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 Let's hear it.
They found. I have to find it. I have so many pages. Honey was found in King Tut's tomb, and because it never spoils, it was still good.
Isn't that
That's
crazy?
weird.
Isn't that crazy?
Now, it will crystallize. A lot of people, and even people that I know and have known for a while that I would supply honey to, will say, hey, this honey turned bad, and it will turn into looks like a sugary content. That doesn't mean the honey's bad. All you have to do is warm it up, and then it will liquefy again. So it never goes bad. But now, nectar will. Nectar can spoil because of the water content in it. The honey has a really low water content, so it will not spoil.
So is it true the darker the honey, the more antioxidants it has in it?
That's what I've heard too. So I've heard the same thing. And a lot of it also depends on what the bees are pollinating. So even with our honey, the spring honey is very light. And if you can look around, you'll see all the wildflowers around, and then mesquite. We have some mesquite trees, and then yopon. And that's typically what they're pulling in the spring.
We have yopon.
Yeah. the fall, they love the bee balm, the horse mint, and so that one's a lot darker and has a stronger flavor. So it'll depend where your hives are. So, and you can never really say like this is cotton honey or this is Yopon honey, because if you look around, there's no way to like tell the bees, you're only going to go to Yopon or you're only going to go to these wildflowers. So when you see that, be kind of cautious of that, and that it's, you know, there's no way for us to tell which flowers they've pollinated. So that's why we like to say this Lee County honey, and you know the native plants here, and that's what they pollinated. So the time of year that they actually produce the honey, that's what the flavor and the color will look different just depending on that. So it's neat to see.
Very good knowledge there. So we were talking about the different kinds of honey that you just brought out, and I have a sample.
Yes, yes. So the first one we had you try was actually from, it's very light, as you can see. Darren did a relocation from Giddings, so Lee County, and it's pretty light. We were thinking there's some nectar probably in there as well. And then definitely some bee parts. So it's not filtered. This is as raw as you can get. But people like the propolis. There's some like antibacterial, antifungal components to some of the organisms and things you'll find in the hive, within the wax and within like the hive body. So a lot of people, what you'll find at the store is actually heated up, to, like, what is it called? Pasteurized.
Yeah.
So it kills all of those benefits that you would get if you have the raw honey. So when you see raw natural honey, it should be not heated at all. And so with our honey, we don't heat it so that you can get the benefits that you get from the raw honey.
There are a ton of benefits.
It's a ton, and so it was seen as like a medicinal. There's a medicinal aspect to honey, and so it's neat to see beekeepers really bringing those conversations and that literature back into with honey. It's not just, you know, to sweeten your tea in the morning. There's a lot of benefits, and especially when you're buying them for allergies. And we've had people contact us saying, hey, my doctor told me to find local honey. And so when you're buying, especially from us, it's from Lee County. It's not going to be from anywhere else. We don't blend it from anywhere else. So if you're in this area and you buy the Lee County honey, you're going to be receiving the benefits that you have from this county.
Yeah. One other thing when you're processing it, she was talking about pasteurizing or heating the honey, which a lot of people do. The reason a lot of people do it, especially in big bottling companies or processes, is it flows better. It's easier to bottle than the slow drip of honey. If you heat it, it's going to bottle quicker, and you can get it in and out quicker. And the other thing is, we do filter our honey, but through a pretty large mesh. If you ultra filter the honey, when you bottle it, you're taking out a lot of the pollens. There have been studies where I think there's I think it's called the True Honey project, where you can send your honey off. We haven't done it yet. We need to, and have it tested, and they can say, okay, well, we saw this particular pollen in there, which is native to this area, so this is a true Texas honey. But if you ultra filter it, you don't get any of those pollens, so there's no way of determining the local value, right? You're taking all that local aspect out of it.
And it's fantastic for allergies. I can attest to that because I do make tea from those terrible trees that we grow here naturally.
The Yopon.
The Yopon.
Oh, you need to teach us how
And
to do
then
that.
I also take the bull nettle that grows out here. I'll cut that down when it's still like the baby plant and it's flowering, and I will cook it and make a tea out of that.
I
And then
didn't know
put
you could
honey
do
in
that.
there. And then it's supposed to help with allergies. So it does.
Really?
My
We have a lot of
allergies-
bull
You
nettle.
can come take all the bull nettle. It is yours.
It's really good gloves. I'll make you some tea. We'll
I would trade. Yes, trade.
do a trade.
Yes. So, the second honey was from the fall, and so that one's a lot darker.
It is a lot darker.
And so, and the flavor is, I call it more robust. So the spring honey will be pretty light, and I think it's because of the wildflowers and the mesquite around here. And then the fall honey, I think you can taste that bee balm pretty strong.
It's just a lot to do with what's blooming at the
Yeah.
time, right? So a lot of people will try to segment out their extractions based on what's blooming. So if you pull honey right before the bee balm blooms, and then you pull it right after the bee balm is through blooming, it's highly likely that your honey is mainly bee balm or horse mat. But you can't say that exclusively because when you look out here, there's tons of different flowers that they can be getting nectar from. But
So what should gardeners plant? And me being a foodie, I'm just anything I can use medicinally or I can eat. You know? Name some plants that you could plant. I mean, you can't say you only can go use these plants over here, but they will find them.
Well, I mean,
they like.
I think, and we've been talking about this more and more, is just trying to promote native flowers. You know, you can plant. They have these butterfly bushes,
But the bees aren't native to here.
but the native plants will grow here, and some of these other plants aren't going to be as prolific. They're probably either going to just remain in the one spot. They're not going to spread. If you can find a way, a lot of people hate this in their fields, but if you can find a way to get some horse mint or the yaupon grows on its own pretty crazy around here, but the yaupon is a good bloom, early bloom for us too. If you want to do something that's beneficial for you too, the bees love gardens. So if you want to plant a vegetable garden, if you want to plant fruit trees, they love the fruit trees. We have a few pear trees out here, and they love the pear trees. So
Lemon balm.
Lemon balm, lavender.
They love lavender. Salvia.
Salvia. I have my lemon trees. Mexican heather. There's quite a few, and I think I would do some researching with your master gardener and talk about what's native here. Like Darren said, I think not only does it grow better here, but if you talk about allergies, you know, you want them to be pollinating those plants and making honey with those, and so. But yeah, I think
lantanas is a big one here.
Lantanas, they do love those.
We have those. They're not my favorite.
No. Yeah.
She loves them. They're wild growing everywhere around here. Yeah,
we have a bunch over here. Yeah, I mean,
They're very hard to
cilantro.
kill.
We love making homemade salsa.
Oh, we do too.
So our garden is like our salsa garden, really. So they love cilantro, and you know. Again,
once it blooms out, before it becomes coriander or whatever.
Yeah. So definitely work with your master gardener, and you know, see what grows best there. And we're doing a butterfly, ladybug, honeybee garden right over here in the corner. So I'll let you know how that goes. But when we were at the nursery, we were looking at plants where the bees and the butterflies are on it, pollinating, and we're like, okay, and we think that's a good one for this area. So they kind of helped us make our choice.
Bees are amazing.
I don't think we need that out here.
I was listening to they have a ton of beekeeping podcasts, and there's two researchers in Montana who were contacted by the U.S. government to help bees understand if there's about to be chemical warfare. And they said that the bees were able to detect a bomb going off 15 seconds before a human would, but that wasn't enough time. They were thinking it would be like 5 minutes. But,
15
but there was
seconds
research being done because to see if they were able to pick it up, that there was a chemical that was not supposed to be there.
It's like a canary.
Yeah, that's exactly what they said. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So what is someone who studies bees?
An entomologist?
No.
What is it?
A melitologist.
What you said. Obviously not us.
I looked it up because I asked, how do you think you'd spell it? I have to look everything up Google. Can you pronounce this for me? And then I have to put it in.
That's
there.
Yeah, same. I have to do the same thing.
So, the practice of beekeeping dates back at least 4,500 years, and approximately 1/3 of our food we eat is the result of honeybee population. What happens? Honeybees are dying off. Can we talk about that?
Yes.
And why?
Yeah, so I think, there's been a lot of things. When my grandpa was keeping bees back in the day, there wasn't anything called colony collapse disorder. I think...
what is that?
it's just what it sounds like. It's just when you go to check on your hives, the colony is no longer there, and there's really no rationale for it. And a lot of people attribute it to potentially pesticides being sprayed in the area, or now there's some understanding that certain herbicides, if not all herbicides, are potentially bad for bees. So, and then also new things like hive beetles. Well, hive beetles aren't exactly new, but varroa mites are affecting the populations.
And they're the bad ones. They'll kill the whole.
Yeah, I think they recently found that the varroa mites feed off of the fatty tissue in like the organs of the bees, and they will affect the overall.
Where do they come from? I mean, are they just naturally everywhere?
You know, I guess now they are, and I don't know where they were before, but now they seem to be a very big issue, and a lot of people treat for those. And there's tons of different methods you can do to treat for varroa mites. It's a constant battle, and trying to keep that in check. So far, we haven't had a major issue with that here. And the hive beetles, exactly, knock on wood. And the hive beetles, if you have your hive in a pretty sunny area and not in a shaded spot, the hive beetles don't like the heat as much, so they are less likely to populate your hive. Wax moths can be an issue. There's tons of different potential problems that a hive can have. So it becomes a real a knowledge thing, and I'm still learning. I think a lot of beekeepers, even that have been doing it for years, are still learning how to combat some of these things. And there's new things that come out all the time that people are now using probiotics in their sugar water to try to help bees maintain a good health. So there's new things that are coming out constantly on trying to combat some of these issues. I think the biggest thing is for a better understanding of what these pesticides do and what their coverage area really is. Because again, if the bees are traveling 3 miles away from their hive location into someone else, another property where they had a crop duster come by and spray all these chemicals, then that's potentially affecting that bee that's coming back 3 miles to his hive and then infecting his hive.
But it can affect you even if they spray 3 miles down the road and the wind's just coming this way.
Absolutely.
This day.
Correct. And with pesticides too, I think there's this feeling that with pesticides that they're not harmful to anything other than the plant, but
No.
there's a lot of things that from insects and cows and
Gets into our watershed.
yeah, there's tons of things that's
drinking it.
doing, and there's not a complete understanding of what the total effect is. But I think hopefully that research is coming out, and I know a lot of European countries are starting to outlaw certain herbicides and pesticides that are helping to decimate the bee population. So we'll see what the effect of those countries ends up being, and if we see some population gains there, then maybe we'll start seeing some of those implementations across other countries and other nations. So yet to be determined.
You do. And you are. That's it. So in their 6 to 8 week lifespan, a worker bee will fly the equivalent of distance of how many times?
How many?
Earth.
How many times the Earth? 3.
Okay, I guess that's my fun fact.
Yeah.
In the 6 to 8 week lifespan of a worker bee, they will fly the equivalent distance of 1.5 times their circumference of
Wow.
the Earth.
Amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah. It's amazing how they communicate with each other. And when Darren again brought the box out after harvesting the honey, and it was just sitting there, it takes like 1 or 2 bees to come figure out this is where the goods are, and they go back, and then all of a sudden you see a ton of them. And so it's so neat to see how they communicate. And they actually, when they go back, they dance.
They'll dance for the
They
hive.
dance for their hives, and that's how they communicate and show the path to get to where the flowers are, where the honey is, or where they're trying to collect. So it's really neat to see that.
It was hilarious watching them dance around my husband.
They do that to me too. I'm like, I'm gonna walk away now.
When we first started this,
Yeah.
she was deathly afraid
I
of
was.
any flying insect, even
Yeah.
a fly near her head. She would just flip out and run. And she's gotten so much better with that. So
I used to be afraid of grasshoppers, so
Yeah.
I feel your pain.
Yeah.
Well, I used to have the big hair. You know, when I
Yes,
moved
yeah.
here in the 90s, and they'd get stuck in
Yep.
there, and I'd go running around the yard. We learned. We learned
We
to
do.
deal.
We do.
Now I want to cook with them, and he has a problem with that. Because you can do cricket flour.
Really?
It's a.
It's a thing now. And
I had it into one of my professors in college, and he had one day where he cooked all these different kinds of bugs, and we went and tried all the different kind of bugs.
Yeah.
I think the U.S. is one of the few places that doesn't have a high protein diet based on insects. I think they said that's one of the best renewable, I guess, sources of protein is insects.
Yeah.
Well, if you're interested, there's a guy that I know that does foraging.
Yeah.
That I've met through the radio show, and he has little camping trips that he takes kids and the families,
Go eat bugs.
and yeah, they go forage.
That is
I
incredible.
can't say as I've ever eaten a bug.
Not on purpose.
Yeah,
I mean, I've
maybe-
flown and one's like
Yeah.
choked on one. Like, but
So, maybe we'll have some honey-coated bugs in the future. We got plenty of bugs out here.
Yeah, you can do grasshoppers. and cover 'em with
Nola
honey.
catches them all the time, so she could be our grasshopper
I
catcher.
think that's an idea. An idea.
You'll be our #1 customer.
He's,
Take 'em to
He's like, no, yeah, he's like, no.
Take them to elementary school. Kids will try anything.
They will. Like, what? This is great.
So I heard that also bee venom is used as a treatment for several ailments like arthritis and high blood pressure.
My grandpa used to always say that. He said, "Oh, he will never have arthritis because he gets stung constantly by bees," and he never did.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to just come out and
Yeah.
stand
Yeah.
outside
There you go.
with my hands up.
My grandpa was the same way. He would go out with nothing on, or maybe just like the veil,
Mm-hmm.
and go check them. And he lived till in his 90s, and yeah. He used to drive around in his truck with a beehive in his front seat, and he said he'd never had to lock his car because no one would want to come steal it with a beehive
Yeah.
sitting in his truck.
Also,
I know, so he was pretty cool, but yeah. So it didn't seem to affect him. Never had arthritis.
There's a lot of. I think there was a thing about celebrities doing that, where they were doing
Yes.
some sort of therapy with venom,
Yeah.
bee venom. I think
Yeah.
it was.
stick it in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing
No,
that.
Well, there are people that buy it. I've seen people on those bee forums. They want bees, and they use them. They'll hold them, and they'll wherever they want
Arthritis.
treatment, they'll place the bee, and it stings them. Yeah.
It's apparent the bee venom is more venomous than snake venom.
Really, just a smaller
It is
dose.
supposed
Huh?
to be, yes.
Yeah, bite
If you get
drop for drop, or yeah,
if you get a whole bunch of bites at one time,
Yeah.
it could kill you.
yeah, oh yeah.
And you do have a bunch out there. So.
We
Yes,
do.
he does.
Yeah. We're gonna avoid that.
Please,
Wear your suit.
yes.
So the ancient Greeks and Romans viewed honey as a symbol of love, beauty, and fertility. And there are people in Africa that keep elephants out of their fields by keeping honeybee hives around the field called a bee fence.
I've heard of that. Yeah. The elephants won't get near the hives. They stay away from them. Much like our dogs.
Our dogs do the same thing. They're like, no, thank you.
But they've only were stung once, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like
Well,
the pup Buddy came up one
Apollo,
time.
the golden retriever, it may have taken him a little longer to
Yeah.
figure it out.
But they're fuzzy, so it's harder I
Yeah.
think for the bees. But the Doberman's like, no, thank you, I'm not playing.
Yeah,
He
doesn't
sees
get
Darren
real
heading
close,
that
yeah.
way, and he's like, have fun.
I ain't
I'm
going.
not going that way.
So then in Greek mythology, Apollo is credited as being the first beekeeper.
Interesting.
The Egyptian people paid their taxes with honey, and the Greeks minted coins with bees on them.
I've heard of
Fun
other
facts.
I guess ancient societies viewing honey or bees as a symbol of royalty. So I think it might have been the Egyptians.
Well, you guys are royalty.
Yeah.
Nowhere close to that.
Yeah, and then the honeymoon, that was part of, like when you say fertility, I mean, they would gift the new married couple like honey, and that was like a symbol of being like fertile and fruitful. So that's where the honeymoon.
Well, that is amazing. Thanks for letting us come out here.
Yeah, thank
and seeing
you.
your whole farm. So if people want to find you, where do they go?
So LeeCoHoney.com, and then we're also on social media on Instagram and Facebook.
Just as LeeCo Honey, so LEECO and then honey, and you'll find us. And we share a lot of what we do on the farm and our family, so you know who you're buying from, and if people have been, wanting to come out and see the operation and go out there with Darren, and so that's been pretty fun. And so we're definitely, open to.
Come on out, I'll get you stung.
We thank you so much for joining us today at the Master Gardener Hour on KRXT 98.5. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. Thanks. God bless and have a great day.